Angry Joe, and we are here at the Paradox Castle in the dungeon, no less. How appropriate for your game, War of the Roses. Excellent. So I have some questions from the community. Now, we got a really loyal, hardcore fan base for Mount & Blade, and they're really excited about this game because it shares some similarities. I guess let's start off right there. You know, how is it similar to Mount & Blade, and how is it different?
Well, we're going to have the same thing where you have that third-person perspective, and it is medieval combat, and you have the melee, you have the swords, you have the shields, you have the parrying, you have the archery, you have the crossbows, and those core key elements of making a medieval combat experience. Where it differs is our design mechanics. We've looked at things that they've done really well, and absolutely, we pay respect to them, and it's like, game mechanics are game mechanics. It's like, first-person shooters still use similar ones that were created in 2000. Not much has changed from 1942 to BF3, as far as how you play the game. And I think Mount & Blade really scratched the surface and opened up this great opportunity for other people to kind of start exploring and improving that melee combat system. That's what we're trying to do. We want to make that, but it's all centric to multiplayer. So that's a big difference. Their game originally was conceived, and the conception was this huge open RPG sandbox experience, a single player. And there are some key difference to design elements when you're designing for single player versus multiplayer. So multiplayer trumps everything for us. All the core mechanics, everything about the game, the way the melee combat is for that multiplayer experience, and also having a huge in-depth perk system that is very standard, or people have come to accept or expect from big multiplayer games like Battlefield and Modern Warfare and Call of Duties.
So I was going to ask a little bit about that. You mentioned that in the sort of press or conference that you gave, there was over 60 perks. Can you explain how those factor into the game? Is there going to be kill streaks? Is this going to be sort of like Modern Warfare?
Not kill streaks per se, but more that these are things that kind of give a slight nuance or difference to your character. So one perk example is you could get the mounted perk. So you can spawn in with a horse. Otherwise, you have to find somebody who got killed off their horse, and their horse is running around abandoned, or we'll place some that spawn in kind of vehicles, like the same sense of vehicles for Battlefield 3, but there's not going to be that many of them. But if you want to spawn in with that, then you have to put that perk on you. And so it's like nuances like that. Or you can slightly lighten your armor, so you still have that heavy protection, but take away some of the hit points from that. So it's there's always going to be a compromise. Every reward is going to have a risk.
And so, playing right into that, perks, customizing your character, there's a lot of focus on customizing your character. Could you talk a little bit about how many different kinds of weapons and what you're actually going to be picking between?
Yeah, we're going to have about 60 plus weapons, and that's going to range over 15 types of weapons. So it's quite a bit, and learning these things is quite a challenge. And they had some amazing and really crazy weapons back then. But pole axes, broadswords, and single-handed swords, and we're going to have different types of shields, and all kinds of equipment, and and then you're also going to be able to modify your weapons. So you're going to change the type of steel that it is, and which will affect how strong it is. All of our weapons have damage, so you can actually break a person's sword if they're trying to parry too much. And so there's a lot of these little nuanced things that it's not going to turn the tide completely and make you this overpowered Zeus character running around Ramboing everybody. You're going to actually be, it's just going to change you just a tad bit. So there's always this bit of mystery when you approach another player. I'm going to look at you and I'm going to be like, okay, I don't know what perks he has, but I know he's got armor on, so I'm going to have to approach it this way, but maybe you sped it up. And so you attack me a bit faster, and I thought, oh, shit, and I have to rearrange. Oh, is it okay to say that on your show?
Yeah, no.
Okay, sweet. I have a foul mouth, so I've been holding back.
That's all the fucking time here.
Whew. Okay, that takes a lot of fucking pressure off me. So and then we're gonna have tons of different crests. So these knights were insane. I mean, they had the most bizarre crests, and we've looked these up and found actual ones that date back to this period.
What's some of the crazy crests that you've seen in actual
Well,
history?
we have one right now that we put in. It's a dog standing on top of a severed head. And so,
Very cool.
yeah, and
Weird.
they had one that's a honey badger. One guy had a bucket. It was just this big bucket on his head. So it's super, super strange things that they did in those times to kind of differentiate themselves. And I think that they're really bored back then. So they needed TV or video games back then.
So, and speaking into that, are there, the different kinds of armor and stuff, because I want to roll around in heavy armor. Are there classes in this game? Are you going to restrict me to certain types of armor, or can I wear heavy armor and roll around with a crossbow or a bow and arrow so I can be like a mobile tank or something like that?
You can do that. We are going to have the standard slots, and we like to kind of define those, with classic video games that everybody understands. So there's going to be your Mario class, there's going to be your Luigi class, and your Toadstool class, right? So support, recon, and assault, basically, in essence. And we're going to
Are you restricted?
Those ones we're going to, kind of pull back and define what we think is a good all-around class for people to select from when they're first starting. But then we're going to also allow people to make custom classes. So you will be able to kind of define your own character and create this what you think is your ultimate warrior. But again, there's always risk reward. When you are in the heavy armor, you are much slower. You can't get around as fast, and if you're and that'll take up your primary weapon if you have a crossbow. So now, if somebody comes up in a melee situation, you only have your sidearm, which is going to be like a single-handed sword or a club or something like that, and then that puts you in a much more disadvantage. So you're going to have a harder time if people enclose that space on you. So the armor is going to help, but you don't have that weapon to really match it up. So that's the beauty of it. And this era is almost like they designed it for video games. For the future, it's like, hey, it's like this armor, it makes me heavier and slows me down. It's like, hello, that's exactly how the gameplay mechanics should work.
Yeah, and playing into that is like, can you roll with your friends, maybe create clans and wear the same emblems? Can you design your own emblems, anything like that?
We're working on getting that feature implemented, so maybe not at launch, but definitely we're looking at how to do that post-launch. We have a really good system that we're using, the BitSquid engine, which is what actually Fat Shark is developing themselves, and that engine is really, really awesome. So we can have an indefinite amount of customization, and it just loads it in dynamically when that player loads. So if you have that, then it goes in. So what we would probably have more realistically is maybe we have preset designs, and we let them kind of put them in together so that we can easily load them up into the system and get them on there. But there's so many opportunities because we're PC.
Yeah.
So, the world is our oyster. We just need to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, and especially, because the community might make, little, put cocks on their helmets and stuff like that.
Exactly. Everybody wants a dick symbol on there, right?
It's terrible. But I got a question here. So one of the, there's lots of different map types, and I saw castles listed in there. That makes me really excited. Is there going to be like siege battles, siege equipment, stuff like that?
There's going to be those, but we need to see how we can implement those in a smart way. Because most of the time when you play a multiplayer game, unless you're playing in an organized fashion, like in a competitive matches and tournaments, most people just want to run around and kill the other guy. So it's hard to get a bunch of guys that want to push this cart while they're getting shot at with arrows. Yeah. So they're like, no, I'm going to go and kick the guy's ass. Fuck him. It's like, so, we're looking at that. How do we do that? We want to release basically with 2 really, really solid game modes and then expand after that and see where the community wants to go. The beauty of PC is we can get updates out there like that. So, we have a bunch of them in the background that we're tweaking and working on and seeing is like maybe tournament guys in the clans, they want some mechanics in there that they can tweak and then they can make some really awesome things that play more into the tournament style and giving them a game mode that's accessible to them and provides that opportunity.
How many players do you think, it's going to be primarily, a big focus on multiplayer. Yeah. How many players are going to be in the game? What have you been able to support? And what do you hope to support?
We actually started doing network testing early on. We're not in alpha yet. We're going to be in alpha hopefully somewhere around April, May. And what we've done is we've actually reached out and started using combat testing. They're a big community-based test group, and that we work with them, and then we have a bunch of different normal guys that are gamers, and they have their gaming rigs, and we're testing with those guys and seeing how our network is actually working. So we're focused really heavily on that, and we've been able to say absolutely we can do 32 players, and we're trying to push it and optimize even more to get even further. So
Get to that 64.
This early into development, things are looking really good, but we never want to try. We don't want to overpromise, because in the past I've seen that happen before, and it just comes back to haunt you. But I will say that we don't want to stop there, and we're not going to say, okay, this is the best, and give you some lip service about this is the best one because this is the way the map's designed for this many players. None of that crap. Yeah. It's like, we want to give you as many options as possible, and just like in 1942, I think supported at least 64 players, but back then hardware couldn't handle it. So most people played with 32, and that's just because that was tech restrictions, and it was fun. So we'll let our community say if they want to have 32 player servers, then they can make 32. If they, if we can provide, the performance wise, that's the only thing we care about. Can we provide performance? If it's laggy and it's a crappy experience, they're not going to care. So it's like balancing that out and making sure we deliver, and we're doing dedicated servers to help improve that.
Cool. Excellent. Dedicated servers is always a good thing. One of the other game modes I was really interested in and we saw is a tournament mode. Is that going to be, like jousting with like the pageantry, kings and queens watching you joust or something like that?
In concept, absolutely, that's something that we would like to achieve. Getting that to work is the big challenge. So that would definitely be something, if we were able to get that to work, it would definitely be post-launch. And that's another thing that fits into more the tournament styles, the leagues, and the clans. It's like, how can we make something a game mode that we can give to them and let them sculpt and shape as well?
Okay, awesome. We've been talking a lot about multiplayer, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that there is a single player. Yeah. Is there a single player campaign? Yeah. What's that like?
There's going to be a single player campaign. It's still really early in development, and scripts always get modified and changed. But the core premise is that you're going to be a fictional character that we've made up, and you're going to be going through the ranks and becoming a knight, and and we're going to be introducing you to all the gameplay mechanics that you would experience in multiplayer from the jump. But we're doing it's it's going to be an intuitive thing. So it is good for those who are a little bit intimidated or not sure they want to get into a server, and all these guys just like death from above and they're just dead. So they have a chance to get in and play that. So we want to make sure that the single player serves that function. It can help introduce players to multiplayer. It also has a fun story. It's kind of like Rome. If you've seen the TV series Rome, it's like two fictional soldiers, and they kind of go through historical events, and they kind of weave this fictional story in with facts and actual historical characters. We're going to do the same thing.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, I mean, it sounds great. When is the game expected to release?
We are definitely trending and aiming towards, and I feel very confident in late summer of 2012.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you guys heard it here. They're putting a lot of time, blood, and sweat into War of the Roses. This is supposed to be, the CEO's dream project, yes. A AAA title. So it's almost like, Battlefield is to DICE, says hopefully War of Roses will be to Paradox.
Absolutely.
Cool. Looking forward to it, man. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and I'll see you guys on the next Angry Joe Show.